to lead generate the roof off of open houses. We are thrilled to have you here. And I just want to take a moment to thank everyone who's reached out, who's connected, everyone that came to this session at Family Reunion. To be honest, this webinar was sort of spawned by just the overwhelming just feedback we had from the session, people that went back out to people in their offices and said, hey, try to get into this session, but we were only doing it once at Family Reunion. So I appreciate it. We probably had about 1,200 people show up at 7:30 in the morning in Vegas, right? So it's not even 7:30 normal time, it's 7:30 Vegas time, to come in here and talk about and learn about a topic that seemingly would be unpopular, unsexy, unexciting, which is open houses. So really just that overwhelming response caused me to say, hey, let's just run this again. For a lot of people that didn't get in, for a lot of people that were asking specific questions, what I wanted to do is just take an hour together and really run through the same presentation we did at Family Reunion, a little bit more detail here and there because we have the time to do that. But ultimately spend just the next hour with you and talk a little bit as well about the Hold It Open and Close the Deal 8-week program that we have on open houses that is through MAPS Fast Track. Really was MAPS reaching out and trying to deliver value to agents within our company and other companies saying, hey, if this system is working for many, many people, let's get it into the hands and in front of as many people as possible. So we're going to spend a little bit of time together. For those of you who know me, great. For those of you who maybe this is the first time, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Chris Suarez. I run PDX Property Group here in Portland, as well as Experience Real Estate. We have begun to expand. This is about 2.5 years of as I like to say, fun, excitement, tears, breaking things, but ultimately we are now in the states that you see there on your screen. We're in Oregon, Washington, California, Idaho, Minnesota, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas, Nevada, New Jersey, and Massachusetts, and really could be in any state in the country should we find talent that wants to expand. And the reason being is because our business has been built around systems, tools, and models. I think if we took anything away from Family Reunion this year, Gary talked a lot, right in the vision speech, in our mastermind with him, in his private mastermind group, he talked about that hockey stick, right, bumping along the bottom until we see exponential growth. And my huge takeaway, and it fits incredibly well in our conversation today, was Gary in our mastermind group asked our colleagues, right, the top agents from the company, and he said, hey guys, what is the difference? What is the difference between bumping along the bottom of that hockey stick and turning that corner? Whether that corner be at 3 years, at 5 years, at 7 years, what's the difference? And the answer he gave was people that see exponential growth use those 3 or 5 or 7 years to build a platform to then leverage off of. To build a platform to then leverage off of. And here's what's cool. That platform started with a model. He said the next thing was we have to build systems to implement that model. And then we have to find people to implement the systems, right? Or to run the systems. So really, if we are someone that wants to see growth in our business, it comes first focusing on a model that we can plug into, then building out the systems to deliver that model, and then finding people to run those systems. And guys, this course, right, Hold It Open and Close the Deal, is ultimately our open house model, our open house systems, and then talking about who, right, what people, how do I plug in and execute these systems so that the model runs. What's interesting about open houses, and I think that's why so many people have connected with us, the interesting thing about open houses is anyone can do them. And Gary says that there are only 3 things that stand between us and success, right? It's the approach, it's our ability, and it's our willingness to do the work. So if we are willing to do the work of a real estate sales agent, Gary said that the only thing we need to look at is approach and ability. And my commitment is, let me share our approach. Your commitment has to be, well, let me work on my ability, right? Let me say what you say. Let me do what you do because I'm willing to. And that's really where this course came from. I'll tell you, this webinar is going to be sort of an overview, some really tactical and specific things that you can implement in your business right after today, right this very weekend if you have an open house plan. But what I realize and what my entire organization realizes is that the open house process, as well as any other lead generation strategy that you may implement or do, comes down to 6 Ps, right? Every lead generation model that we implement in our business, I say, hey, there's got to be 6 P's to it, and they're up there on the screen for you. If you're taking notes, I'd write them down. It comes to psyche, right, which is mindset. What is the psyche that I show up with? What is the mindset? And the only reason why it's psyche is because mindset is an M word, and I needed something catchy. So it's the 6 Ps. What is my mindset or is my psyche around this lead generation strategy that I'm going to do? Like, how do I think about open houses? How do I approach open houses? What is my mindset around open houses? Then it's going to be the next 5, right? How am I preparing? How am I promoting? What process am I going to go through? What does my performance look like, which is probably the most attractive to all of us. That's what we want to get to. I will say that that's typically what people are good at, right? That's why we do what we do. We are good performers. We are great real estate agents. However, we start with the psyche. We have to prepare. We have to promote. We are going to follow a certain process. We'll perform. And then, quite honestly, perhaps the most important thing is what happens after, the post-open, right? Or to be honest, any lead generation strategy, right? What happens after we perform, the post-performance. Here's what I want to start with, though, and it's one of my favorite sections of MREA, and it really did start the psyche or the mindset of the open house for me on page 135 of MREA, right? And many of you know me as the guy that coaches Model Your Way to a Million, right? I coach MREA. So on page 135 of MREA, Gary said we have to get very, very clear about one thing, right? We have to get clear about the fact that our business is a database business. The only thing we should care about is how do we add people to the database, because in MREA, Gary says the size of our business will be directly proportionate to the size of our database. So if we get nothing else out of this webinar, we have to believe that the only reason why we are there, the one reason why we're at that open house, is to add people to our database. And that's the mindset that I show up with time and time and time again, right? The mindset I show up with is I am here to build a database. It is a database business. I know that time on the right task over time is going to fill my database. I just chose one activity, the one activity we're talking about today, open houses. I will share with you that our strategy and our systems and our models are built out such that now we have proven that anybody can get into production and profitability in any state, in any city, in any market, urban and rural, right? Condos and acreage. We implement this model across the country with our expansion partners. Our mindset and our expansion partners' mindset is this is a database business. The size of my business will be directly proportionate to the size of my database. So the only thing I care about every time I open up a door or every time I show up to perform, when I eventually get there, if I've done my job, everybody that walks through that door is either an immediate seller or an immediate buyer, a future seller or a future buyer. And here's why I say that. If they own a house, they're going to sell it. Maybe right now, and maybe 6 years, 7 years, 10 years in the future, I don't care, maybe when they die. But at the end of the day, I'm going to still be in business. So they are a future seller if they own a house, or an immediate seller. And if they don't own a house, they're either going to buy a house immediately, an immediate buyer, or one day I believe that they should own a house. So one day they will be a buyer. So everybody in my world gets put into the database under one of those categories: immediate buyer, immediate seller, future buyer, future seller. And our goal and our focus and our strategy in that open house is to add someone to the database, because people in the database become leads. And this is what Gary says on page 135 of MREA. The octane of your fuel is irrelevant if you don't have enough to get to your destination. Now, many of you who know me know that's one of my favorite quotes in the book, and here's why. Because we will always tell ourselves that, well, you know, I just want good leads. I need better leads. I need great quality leads. And some people will say, and they'll go out on a limb and say, you know what, instead of a big database, I just want a really deep database. I want to have really strong relationships with people. They know me, I know them, they love me, they refer me, and that's a win, right? I'm here to say that that is awesome. However, Gary says the octane of your fuel, let's call that the quality of your database, right? The octane of your fuel is irrelevant if you don't have enough to get to your destination. Right? When we run out of gas, we don't think, I wish we put in 93 grade or 95 grade instead of the 87. We just think, I should have filled up. I should have added 2 more gallons, right? Or how the heck do I not have gallons of gas in my tank? The same is with our database. Our open house strategy has to be for one reason and one reason only, and this is the psyche of our open house. I need to turn haven't mets into mets, right? Who don't I know? How do I get to know them? And here's why. Up on your screen, you are going to see the economic model of the open house. Now, if we don't have an economic model of our open house, we just don't know it because everybody does. Gary says in MREA, under the economic model, he says, everybody has one. Sometimes we just don't know it. And the economic model tells us, right, and it is based on some ratios as well. The lead generation model is based on some ratios as well, that if I wanted to make $250,000 per se, right, this is just an example. If I wanted to make $250,000, right, I need to sell about $8.5 million worth of real estate on an average commission. If my average sales price was $300, now, I tried to look at where everyone was. Where do people live that are signed up for this webinar, right? Where are we living all across the country? As I look at that, the average sales price was about $300, so I took that, right? We understand that in order to make $250,000, we need to sell 28 houses a year. 28 houses, 28 houses, 28 houses. That will equal about $250,000 in GCI. MREA says this, for every 12 people that we've met and they're in our database and we consistently connect with them in a meaningful way, we will do 2 deals. For every 12, we will do 2. So what does that mean to me in my open house mindset? Well, I need to get 168 people into my net database. I know this is math, stay with me. 168 people in my net database. Now, are there different ways to do that? Yes, and that's what's so amazing about our industry. You can do that on the phone, you can cold call, you can door knock, you can circle prospect, you can do expireds and FSBOs, you can farm, you can do networking. But guess what? The one thing that I chose to do, right, the fastest way that I believe that I was going to get people I have not met into a net database and work on that 12-to-2 ratio was open houses. So here's what I told myself. I believe that I can build a strategy such that I add 2 people to my database for every open house I do. Now, there will be some open houses that I have no one come through. There will be other open houses like this past weekend where I had 23 people come through and added 9 people to the database, right? But on average, I'm going to add 2 people to my database every open house I do. Now, set the expectation. Family reunion, Chris Heller said, set the expectation before you do the activity. That is my expectation. Some of you might be thinking, well, that's a low expectation. Guess what? That's what I built my business off of. I said for every open house I'm going to do, I'm going to add 2 people to my database. What did that mean if I wanted to make $250,000? I need to do 84 open houses this year to add 168 people every year to my database, such that I'm going to sell 28 homes from that group because I'm going to connect with them because I'm going to follow my 6P strategy. Sounds strategic, doesn't it? It's one of the 6 ways the MREA thinks is think strategically and think competitively. So what did that mean? Right? We can say that, and unless we boil it down to what I have to do, it often ends up flat in our business. So if I'm going to do 84 open houses every year, that means I'm going to do 7 open houses every month, and that means I need to do about 1.75 open houses every week. What does that look like? 1 this week, 2 next week, 1 this week, 2 next week. I need to make sure that I'm doing 7 open houses every month. And I knew that I would add the right number of people to my database. What didn't I get caught up on? I didn't get caught up on will it turn into business. I believed MREA. I bought into that model. I knew that if I added people to my database and I followed a system for that database, which is a big if, right? If I did that, the business would come. Now, I know that most people don't. I know that because I did not for years, right? I was that agent, 7 years into the business, super entrepreneurial, killing myself with activities, but not seeing the ratio or the conversion rates that I should have from my database. And that is one of the reasons why we created, right, Hold It Open and Close the Deal, such that I share my email scripts and my phone scripts and my follow-up scripts and my print and my, right, all those things. I understand that most of us will not build this out. Even after going through this webinar, all of us can do it. Most of us will not. But here's the other piece to that mindset, and I think this is probably one of the most impressive, is that NAR tells us that 2 out of 3 sellers and buyers hire the first agent they meet. Think about that, right? It is almost 70, it's about 75%, right? Almost 70% roughly, I guess, of people hire the first agent they meet. NAR also says, and that's not up here, but NAR also says that 82% of buyers and sellers hire or interview only 2 agents. Man, that just means we need to get to the table. That just means we need to win the how do we get in front of them game. Now look at the second stat from NAR. 8 out of 10 open house guests are unrepresented. I know 8 out of 10 say they are, right? But 8 out of 10 open house guests are truly unrepresented. We'll talk about questions during our performance to figure that out. But 80% of people that walk through your door are unrepresented. 2 out of 3 of those will hire the first agent. What does that mean? Over 50% of all open house guests will hire that first person they meet, and they are unrepresented. That means it's you. That's not a bad ratio, and I built an entire business, a very big business off of that ratio. And it's that passion behind how such a simple process can lead to pretty cool results. So we've talked about mindset. Let's talk about preparation. Let's talk about preparation. Here's what I will also say. Just take a step back for a minute. And some of us start, right? There are brand new agents on this call. There are incredibly like big team agents on this call. Some of us have a database, some of us don't. But here's what I would say. We need to figure out what our gap is, right? Choose, and we've already done this because we have our business plan for 2017. We must. It's the end of February. We know how much business we want to do. We know where we want to get to. Figure out what is your gap in your database, right? If you need 300 people in your Met database and you have 150, awesome. There's a gap of 150, and all you're going to do is build an open house plan around that gap. So let's talk about preparation and what we do. We have a very strategic way to prepare for open houses. Number one, we target specific neighborhoods. And in Hold It Open and Close the Deal, we'll go through some analytics of what we look at, turnover ratio, and right, how many listings are on in each neighborhood, how many buy sides happen in each neighborhood. We'll look at percentage of equity for each home. But we are going to target specific neighborhoods. Here's what typically happens around open houses. And we all know, because we've all done it, on Friday we send out an email to our office and say, hey, anyone have an open house that I can hold? Why? Well, because our Saturday plans just canceled on us. We have a boring afternoon and we think, well, I probably should hold an open house because I haven't in a couple months. That isn't strategic, right? We haven't targeted specific neighborhoods. And what do we get when we reach out that way? We'll get random homes in random neighborhoods at random price points. So we have to have a plan. We have to have a targeted approach to where we want to work, why we want to work there, what price points we want to work. So we're going to target specific neighborhoods. We are also going to target traffic patterns and times of day. Here's what I will share. I had a very big goal early on, right? When I moved to Portland, I didn't know anybody. Many of you know that story. But I started my business in New York. I moved to Eugene. Then I moved to Portland. I didn't know anybody every time I moved. And so what did that mean? I needed to get a lot of people into my database very quickly. so what did I do? I did open houses, as you know. I did them about 6 days a week. Why? Because I knew that if I was there, someone was going to walk through if I did my job. So I began to target traffic patterns and vary my days and times. So what did that look like? Well, I would look at lunch times, right? I would look at where are there office parks, where are there big employers, right? Where are there a lot of people working, and where do they go to lunch? And I would make sure that my open house sat in traffic patterns around the lunch hour. So all of a sudden now 11 to 1, 11 to 2 became a potential open house time for me on a Monday, on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, on a Thursday. So I didn't limit my open houses to a Saturday and Sunday. Commute times became a strategy that I looked at. What does that mean? Well, people commute in the morning, commute in the evenings. So I started looking at, well, what if I did open houses from 4 to 6? Right? 4 to 7 or 5 to 7 when people are leaving their places of work and showing back up to home. Here's what's interesting about that. I got a lot of traffic. And guess what traffic that was? It was seller traffic. We'll talk about in our course, should you wish to sign up, we'll talk about how do we get that traffic and how do we target who we're looking for. Our target is typically sellers. Why? Because it's leads for listings and then leverage, right? We want listings. So a lot of people will look at open houses and say, well, I'm just so overrun with buyers anyway. Congratulations, right? That's 50% of your business. However, the majority of our business from open houses actually comes from sellers. We'll talk about strategies on how to do that. But commuting times, right, where people are coming in and out of their neighborhood is a huge one. School drop-off and pickup. Right? So I'd look at communities, right, targeted neighborhoods that I wanted to be in, and I'd make sure that my signs were around the school. Why? Because from about 8 to 10, people are dropping off kids at school, and where are they going? Sometimes back home after the drop-off. Right around 2 to 4, that's a great time around school. Why? Because they're picking kids up, they're dropping kids off from practice, and people that live in the neighborhood go to those schools. So all of a sudden, I'm starting to layer in activities surrounding specific neighborhoods, targeting traffic patterns in certain days and times. Then, right, in a business plan, I know exactly how many open houses I need to have, exactly how many people I expect to show up, and exactly how many people I expect to get contact information from. It's all part of my second P, right, the preparation. The second part of that preparation is being prepared. We're going to talk about how each one of these 5 things will show up in your performance. But if you're taking notes, write down these 5, right? We build a digital folder. Now, if you don't want to use a digital folder, fine, get a regular folder. But what I say is strategically, we use a digital folder for a reason. Our goal at every open house is to trade value for contact information. My philosophy and my mindset is I'm there to trade. I'm a trader. Right? I trade you value for your contact information. I am going to earn the right to request your contact information, and you will gladly share that with me because you want something that I have. So I don't use print flyers. What do I use? Digital flyers. Why? Because everybody wants a flyer, and now I have to email it to you, which means I need your email address. The second thing that I put in my digital folder, right? It's labeled the street address. I know that I'm going to show up to the open house. I'm going to have a digital flyer. I'm going to have active pendings and solds around that home, right? About 3 actives, 4 actives, 5 actives, no more than 5 in each category, actives, pendings, and solds. What is that going to allow me to do? Well, I can offer the actives to the buyer if they want to drive by and see what else is available. I can offer pendings to sellers. I can definitely offer solds to sellers and neighbors as well if they're interested to see what the most recent solds are around their neighborhood. I'm going to have an economic report in that folder. Why? Because I'm going to try to provide value. We are an information source. People pay us for information. We're going to stand out as well as buyers go from one open house to the next open house. So we'll have an economic report. And I'll go through, for lack of time in our webinar today, just know that there are probably 3 or 4 solid economic reports that you can use. We go through that in our Hold It Open and Close the Deal program. Which reports should we use and how do we use them? 4, items of value. This could be a number of things. It could be a list of open houses if it's a Saturday or Sunday. It could be an interesting article that you read in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal about real estate. It could be a local article that you read. It could be events that are going on in your neighborhood. I will always look for some other item of value in case no one cared about actives, pending, solds, and economics of real estate, which 9 times out of 10 they will say yes to the first two. And the last thing that's in that digital folder is just a link to our Google Doc sheet. And here's why. I don't use a sign-in sheet. There's no paper there for them to fill out, but I have a Google Doc sheet. And my virtual assistant right now, initially that was me, but understand that after every open house, I can have a virtual assistant or an in-office assistant or myself go in and move those people, that information, immediately from that lead sheet into the database. What happens if we don't do that? We write down their name on a sticky note, we write it on our yellow pad of paper, we put it somewhere on our iPad, and it never gets into the database. If my purpose is to add to the database, that Google Doc is live. I have multiple agents doing open houses all the time. They can see who's adding people to that lead sheet and who's not. Ultimately, that lead sheet's going to have their name, their phone number, their email address, their address, potentially, right, if it's a neighbor, and some notes. After that, the only thing I'm going to do is say, hey, what kind of lead was it? Clearly an open house. It's just a drop-down menu, lead type, open house, and what plan are they going on? Are they an immediate seller, immediate buyer, future seller, future buyer? That digital folder is a critical piece of the preparation process for us all. All right, let's go to promotion. Let's go to promotion. So what happens? I'm going to share with you very quickly our 7-day process of promotion. Now, in our course together, obviously we have a lot more time. We have 8 weeks, so we'll go day by day and talk specifically about what happens. But if you want just an overview, this is a brief overview. On Monday, I'm just setting this up as if Monday was the start of the week, but understand if you're doing a Wednesday open house, guess what Monday is? It's really Tuesday. If you're doing a Friday open house, guess what Monday is? Thursday. We're always looking to set our open houses a week in advance. So a week in advance, on day 1, we select the open house. On week 2, we've already posted it online, right? We posted online on week 2. We obtain a call list. Right? Initially we use the title company, now we use software, right? We'll talk about that. But we use software or the title company to obtain a call list. These are probably the closest 100 neighbors. Now, do we get 100 phone calls? Probably not in today's reality. But even if we get 12 or 16 or 18, we're going to call around the neighborhood and let them know that we're going to hold that home open online or open that Saturday or Sunday or Monday or Tuesday. On the second day, we're going to mail out some invites, just invitations to the closest 100 owner-occupied homes, letting them know that it's going to be open. On the third day, or on Wednesday, we post it online again. We now call the neighbors. We've gotten the call list, and the sign goes up in the yard. What does that sign say? It says what day of a week it's open and what time. Why? Because people in the neighborhood drive by that home every single day. And who do I want to attract? Sellers. So sellers from the neighborhood will look at that sign and plan their week accordingly. On Thursday, I post online. I call neighbors. Continue to call through my neighbors. I invite my database. Now, what does that mean? We'll in our course, we'll talk about how we tag people that come into the open house, but I'll tag them by quadrant of the city, right? I'll tag them by neighborhood. Why? Because then I can go into that database. I've met them at an open house in the past. I know that they're looking in that neighborhood, or I know that they live in that neighborhood, and I'll send a quick email invite out to the database in that area, letting them know I'll be in the area again, holding another home open. I will call all my signed calls if that's my listing, and I'll email all my internet leads off of that listing. Why do I do that? What we have found is many people call for information or email for information, but do they want to meet you, talk to you, or set an appointment with you? No. But there's something about an open house that allows them to feel comfortable enough to not commit to you and still see it. We've generated a lot of traffic from old signed calls and internet leads around a listing. On Friday, we post it online again, obviously getting a lot of online exposure at this point, right? We prepare those market stats and comps, right? We get that digital folder prepared. So on Friday, That digital folder gets built out. On Saturday, we post it online, we do some directional signs, right, if that's the day of the open or whatever, we door knock, and we invite our sphere by phone and social media, right? We post on social media that we're going to be out there open. Now we boost that as well into certain zip codes. We'll talk about that in our course. But ultimately, I'm reaching out to the sphere, my sphere in that neighborhood as well. Now, is that a lot? Not typically. Right? It could be people that I've sold homes to in the neighborhood. It could be past clients. It could be friends that live there. I just want them to know that I'm active in the marketplace. Now, this is still preparation, right? But this is my pre-open script. This is my door knocking script. And what does that door knocking look like? Well, I think we're all pretty, we set big goals initially and then reality hits. What I have found is for our team and our organization, we want 20 to 25 doors knocked, right? That is typically up one side of the street. It's basically a full block. You'll walk the block and get 20 to 25 doors. Now, in the past, we wanted 50 and 75 and 100, and guess what happened? Nothing, right? It was just too many. So here's our pre-open house script, right? We're going to knock on the door, and put simply, we're just going to tell them, hey, I'm holding an open house just down the street and wanted to invite you to come by and take a look. I found that people who live in the neighborhood typically live here because they love it. So if you have any family or friends who might be interested in the neighborhood, you can call them and invite them as well. Now, I hope that starts a conversation, right? And in our course, we'll go through what does that conversation path look like and what does that script look like. But this simple door knocking script is not a sales pitch. So some of us live in cities where we can't door knock for sales. This is an invitation. And in fact, one of the things I've layered in now is letting them know that their neighbor wanted me to invite them. Now, what does that do? It puts a personal spin on this conversation. Your neighbor wanted me to invite you. Now, all of a sudden, they feel obligated to come. So that's all your preparation. Let's move to performance. Let's talk about performance. This is critical, right? This is critical because now you've done the work. Right? You've spent the time and energy, and believe me, this is a lot more time and energy than you've typically done in an open house. I understand that. I knew that getting into it. What I will share is up to this point, could every single one of these activities be leveraged? They can. They can. Up until the performance, every single one of those activities can be leveraged, even door knocking. Out to an outside or inside sales agent, right? Everything could be leveraged. And here's what I realized about 6 years ago, right? I had shown up and I had built a fairly large business just in Portland. And Gary Keller invited me to talk with him on stage at Mega Camp about open houses. And this is what he shared with me. He said, here's my one concern. You have built an incredible business. And he said something that stuck with me. He said, you are evidence that any lead generation strategy could be a $20 million business, right? Because that's where I was. I had done about 24, 25 million in production that year, the majority of it in open houses. And he said, any one strategy could be a $20 million business. Here's your challenge. 2 things, Chris, you need to go do. You need to go add legs to your stool, because if you want to go from 20 to 40 to 60, you probably need to add in a secondary lead generation source. That's what we did. And he said the other thing is you need to figure out how do you leverage this lead gen source such that it's replicatable, duplicatable, right, and leverageable for the future. That's where this course came from, right? We have demonstrated that it's leverageable because now we have expansion partners plugging into our open house system, just going out and performing and killing it, right? Closing deals and signing listings and contracting buyers. So understand everything can be leverageable. And for some of us, we might think, well, great, like this system's awesome, but that seems like a lot of work. Yeah. If I were you, ultimately I'd probably send my director of operations or administrative team through the course. Why? So they can set up the systems around this model, right? And build that platform to leverage off of that Gary was talking about at Family Reunion. So let's talk about our performance. Here's the deal. I have one goal and one goal only, performance time. I need to get their name, their number, their email address, and their mailing address, right? I'll be good with 1. I'd love 2. I'd be really excited with 3 of those, and I win with 4. That's how I show up every time I do an open house. Name, number, email, mailing address. Name, number, email, mailing address. So all of my scripts, all of my conversations, all of my questions, all of my strategies leading up to this point, all the value that I have is to exchange that value for their name, number, and email address. One of my favorite parts of Shift, right, when Gary wrote Shift, there's a section in there about lead generating, right, and how important it is in a shifting market. And sometimes what happens at opens, we really like them. They walk through the open. We get their name. We have a quasi-good conversation with them. And then like our stomach or our gut tells us, oh, I just don't want to be pushy. Like I don't want to like push them into working with me. Maybe I'll see it. I'll give them my card. I'll hand them this flyer. And I think we made a really good connection and they'll call me. Guess what, guys? They won't call you. I promise. I promise, right? 15 years later in this industry, they won't call you. Maybe a couple will, congratulations, but you won't run a big business based on feeling that you're being pushy at an open house. Here's what Gary says in Shift that I love. He said, guys, here's what you need to understand. You're either pushy or you're not. So if you're not, you aren't, and you're not going to come across that way. So ask for their number, ask for their email address, ask to stay in touch with them. You're not pushy, you won't come across that way. And on the flip side, if you are pushy, accept it, you're pushy, right? So you're going to come across that way. Some people will like it, some people won't, but it is what it is. You're pushy. Accept it. And I love it. Okay? It lets us detach from this social drama that we have at an open house, not knowing whether what can we say and am I too pushy or am I not. So we're going to strategically get their name, number, email address, and mailing address. We're going to get them into a digital sign-in. We're going to use Dropbox or Google Drive or ShareFile. We're going to have some sort of digital folder such that we can provide value to them. Now, let's talk about some scripts. I will tell you, if you're writing anything down, write this one question down. I've shared it probably hundreds of times, so probably all of you have heard it. But this one question changed the trajectory of our open houses, and there's a reason why it did. But no matter where they come from, who they are, the first question I ask as they walk through the door, I say hello, and then I ask them this question. It's non-pushy, right? It's inconsequential, but it's huge. And I say, hey, are you out shopping for a home today, or do you happen to live in the neighborhood? Are you out shopping for a home today, or do you happen to live in the neighborhood? Now, they're going to answer one way or the other. Oh, no, we're just shopping. We're just starting our search. Oh, no, we live in the neighborhood. I immediately know, is this a buyer or a seller? And all my scripts are geared towards either a buyer or a seller. My conversation path will go down one way or the other, depending on whether they are a buyer or a seller. I need to know that right up front so I know what questions to ask. I need to know that right up front so I know what questions to ask. And then it's just a series of questions. Guys, this is practice, right? It's just internalizing questions, right? My first goal is what's their name? And typically, right, if I share mine, they will share theirs if I ask. And why do I care? Because if they're a seller and I can get their name, even if they don't like me and never give me any other time of day, they're going into my database as a future seller. Because I have their name. I know they said they live in the neighborhood. I'm going to pull up the tax records and add them into my future seller database. Win. Right? They will be touched in a meaningful way. Right? Hopefully, I'm going to get their email address along the way, but they'll be touched in a meaningful way by print, even if they don't give me anything other than their name. So their name is critical. I get their phone number. And honestly, we just need to get unhung up. That wasn't a pun, but unhung up about the fact that we're asking for a phone number, right? So as I give them my name or as I'm giving them my card, I say what my number is. Hey, here's my card. My phone number is 503-890-6527. If you need me anytime, just feel free to give me a call. What was your number? I shared mine. They will share theirs. It's a human nature. Now, the next two questions or the next two beginnings of a sentence that have been incredibly influential and powerful for us is, would it be of value to you if? Insert anything you have to offer them. Hey, would it be of value to you if I sent you the other open houses that are going on right now so you can drive by? Would it be of value to you if I sent you all the homes that sold in the last 3 months so you can see what's going on in your neighborhood? Would it be of value to you if I sent you that economic report that we were just talking about? Would it be of value to you if I sent you, right? It doesn't matter what it is. But the thing about that question, and it's a script, don't change it, is would it be of value to you if you believe something's valuable, another human doesn't want to tell you it's not. Right? Think through that. Would it be of value to you if? No. No, it wouldn't. Most people are not going to say that. You're moving them to a yeah, sure. And immediately then you get to email it to them, which means you get to ask for their email address. The other one I love is would you be offended if? Right? This is all part of our performance, working on a performance. Hey, would you be offended if I emailed you a flyer to the home? Well, yes, I'd be offended. Like, of course they're not going to be offended. So it moves them to a shore, right? Like, no, I'm not. I wouldn't be offended. Would you be offended if I sent you just an update on what's going on in your very own neighborhood? Well, no. Great. Where can I email that to? Right? And let me just do a follow-up, right? Because I'm on this topic and I'm passionate about getting contact information. You do realize that if they give you their email address, 90% of the time we should get their phone number. I think we've gotten into, well, I got their email address, let me back away because I'm just thrilled that I got their email address and I don't want to ask another question. Guys, here's the reality. If you got their email address, one question changes your conversion ratio of email plus phone, and it's this. Hey, if the email bounces back, what's a good number so that I can reach you at? Simple. It makes perfect sense to ask that, because if you believe what you're sending them is valuable, that means you want it to get there. And if they ask for it, you want to commit and make sure that it got there. So hey, if that email bounces back for whatever reason, sometimes that happens, what's a good number that I should reach you at? At that point, it's awkward if they don't give it. So they will. 90% of the time, if you ask that question, I guarantee you they will give it to you. Now, you go through your performance, you talk to them, you develop rapport, you got their no, you didn't get their email. Let's say you didn't ask the right questions, you just had a good conversation. The last question is phenomenal. Hey, I've really enjoyed talking with you and would love to continue our conversation. Would that be okay? How do they say no to that? Right, so understand performance is about questions, right? I mean, all these are questions. Would it be of value? Would you be offended? What's your name? I've really enjoyed talking with you and would love to continue our conversation. Would that be okay? No, thank you. Like, how awkward would that be? They're not going to say no. So if you failed, right, you haven't delivered value, you haven't offered them anything, you've just been nice, then continue to be nice and offer to continue their conversation. I will say, if we internalize just these few questions, our database is going to get filled. And once our database starts to get filled, we have to be very real about our post-open strategy. This is where some of us do phenomenal, right? Up until this point. The open house goes well, we feel great, we're locking up the door, we close it, we drive away, and then we wait for the phone to ring, or we wonder why our business isn't growing. And that's because we haven't moved from being entrepreneurial to being purposeful, right, about our post-open strategy. I will say this, probably a good 2 weeks out of our 8-week course is surrounding what do I do now? What do I say now? What do I email now? What do I mail now? What do I do now? Because I heard something phenomenal at family reunion, right? We sell a house based on lead generation. We build a business based on lead follow-up. So understand, the open house was your lead gen. The post-open is your lead follow-up. Gary Keller says this, the best in the industry never allow lead gen to fall prey to the ebb and flow of enthusiasm or the market. They systematize such that little energy or enthusiasm is required to keep the machine running. That is probably the biggest issue for the open house process, right? We were super energetic, we were super excited, we had the enthusiasm for the open, we showed up, we performed, and then we just get tired, right? Our enthusiasm ebbs because it didn't turn into an immediate buyer or an immediate seller. Well, I will tell you, I definitely have a lot of energy, right? So my energy level may help my strategy, but I will tell you this as well, that I have systematized such that little energy and little enthusiasm is required to keep our lead generation and lead follow-up machine running. So what does that mean? Classify your leads, right? Immediate buyer, immediate seller, immediate future buyer, future seller. Don't get things complicated. Why? Because we do that. we complicate this so much such that we have like 21 different contact types, and that means we need to build up 47 plans, and what do? Nothing, because it's just too overwhelming. Classify the leads, have very strategic plans for everybody that walks in. Now, thank you notes to every single person. The majority of our traffic comes from neighbors. Why? Because strategically we set it up that way, and we teach the members of Hold It Open and Close the Deal how to do that. So we're going to send out thank you notes. Guess what happens? That's your touch, right? My goal is to have them as METs in my database, but understand I don't earn the right to count them as a MET unless I put them through the relationship building plan, which is an MREA called an 8x8, right? I call that an 8x4, to be honest. I'm going to touch them about 8 times in 4 weeks. I'm not going to wait 8 weeks. So it's going to be about a 4-week process. So the first thing I'm going to do is send them that thank you note. I'm going to thank them for coming, right? If it's a neighbor, I can handwrite them a note. If it's not a neighbor and I got them an email, I got an email address, guess what? I'm still going to email every single buyer and every single seller to thank them for coming to the open house. I'm going to call and email everybody. Any contact information that I got, even if it's 3 types, I'm going to use all 3 types to reconnect with them on lead follow-up. Follow-up script. This is straight out of KW Connect, guys, right? Maps Coaching gave me this one, right? We met earlier today at the Open. I wanted to let you know I did a little digging when I got back to the office and found several properties in the neighborhood where we met that matched your criteria. I know the house that you saw wasn't quite right, but I think these few others might have some real potential. Can we get together, right? Tomorrow, finish that however you wish. The point is, 2 things happen. They know you went right back to the office, did a little digging, or got back to work and are following up. How many people do you think did that after they met them at the open house? Only you. Only you. This script gets used immediately after the open house if I have a phone number, or I type this out in an email if I have their email. Then here's what happens. You have to commit to building a 12 direct, an 8x8, and a 33 touch. Let's talk about those, right? A 12 direct. If it's a seller, I didn't get a lot of contact information and I only got a name, guess what? They're still going into a 12 direct. Why? Because I don't necessarily believe they're a MET yet. I didn't build a strong enough relationship, but I want to. So they're going to go on a 12 direct campaign. What does that look like? Just 12 economic reports once a month, once a month, once a month. That's a future seller campaign. It's very simple. You could leverage that. You could purchase that. You could write that. I hope you don't, right? You can do anything in that 12 direct. All of us need a 12 direct, right? We'll share ours. 8x8. Remember, I'll share something from a mastermind that Gary did with right, top agents in the country. He says, hey guys, how many of you have a 33 touch? Really, everyone raise their hand, right? I think by now we get that. We know that we should. Now, if you don't, we'll share ours during our course. But most of us have that, right? So we have that 33 touch. He says, congratulations, good, at least you get this, right? You know, I'm glad you do because you're helping write the next book. The second thing he says is, how many have an 8x8? Dramatically, the hands go down. I'm just being transparent. So many of us have the 33 touch, and then we say, hey, that doesn't work. I'm not at a 12-to-2 ratio, right? I don't know that 33 touch thing works. You know, I have about 1,000 people in my database, and I'm not at a 12-to-2 ratio. What he challenged us and asked us is, that's fine, but did you execute an 8x8? Remember, the only way a 33 touch works is if we connect with them after we first meet them 8 times over an 8-week period, right? It's top of mind awareness. It's figuring out what can we do, how do we reach out, what do we say, what can we offer during those 8 times. Here's why we don't do that, because it feels pushy and stalkerish, right? We just don't want to be that guy, or we don't want to be that girl. Like, we just don't. Again, social drama that causes us not to do the 8x8, not connect with them 8 times in a meaningful way very quickly, such that the relationship is established and we earn the right to touch them 33 times a year, and we earn the right to expect a 12-to-2 ratio. So what does that look like? It's thank you notes and mail campaigns, it's email campaigns and phone call campaigns. We need to build out our messaging. Now, could everyone use mine? Absolutely. And will it work? Better than nothing. But I will also say this, as we take you through the process of building your own, I believe that as people experience you at the Open or experience an agent at the Open, it has to work with the personality of who we are and the value we give. You will find out, right, if you join us in the Hold It Open and Close the Deal course, you will find out that ours, we are economic driven. Why? Because I love that. I love providing value about what's going on in the marketplace. And so many of our touches reflect that. But you see, that's what they experience at the open house as well. I would argue that our expansion agents are some of the most educated, right, market-driven, knows their area agents in the country. Why? Because that's what we do. That's who we are. And our touches and our campaigns reflect that personality. Now, I have received campaigns that I would never send out, yet are wildly successful. Why? Because that's the personality of their agent. So we do need to put in the time. We need to do the work, as our team likes to say, right? We always say that, do the work, do the work, do the work. We have to do the work on building those campaigns. It's just coaching through how do we set those up, how do we skeleton through them, and how do we work through them together for that 12 direct, 8x8, and 33 touch. Now, I'll say, right, our business is changing. And as Gary has continued to challenge me to leverage and to make something duplicatable, and how do we turn 1 open houses into 3 and 3 open houses into 5, right, we have begun to use digital open houses as well. We'll talk a little bit about this in our course together, but it's a phenomenal opportunity to use social media, right, outreach by zip code, by neighborhood, targeting. I mean, it's amazing what we can do with analytics and actually do live open house tours, right? Our team is just beginning to use this. It's very cool to see the comments and the feedback and the showings that show up from it. And if nothing else, it's a way to leverage time as well. Could you hold 5 open houses in an afternoon if you toured them for 5 minutes live? Absolutely. Absolutely. So we'll talk through that, just extending, getting slightly creative after we have built a model, we have systems, and we have people that are doing it. What we need to understand and remember is the power behind having big goals is really about the power of acquiring big habits by beginning with the end in mind. Right? Our open house strategy, is it a big goal? Absolutely. Right? Every member on our team has a goal for how many open houses they're going to do every single year. But what's interesting about that, it's the habits that we form by doing that that helps us get to the end. We've built the habits and we've built those goals because we understand at the end of the day, our main focus is just adding to our database. What's interesting, guys, is we talk about open houses today, but you realize that this strategy and this process and this focus can be attributed or attached to expireds, FSBOs, door knocking, circle prospecting, right, networking. I promise you, like this model, this 8-week model that we bring people through, yes, it's for open houses, but understand you take this framework and you attach it to anything that you wish to do or want to do, and you're going to be just fine. So, you know, we're going to open this up to some questions if you have it. Before we do that, I just personally want to invite you to hold it open and close the deal. And I talked about that at Family Reunion at length, but it's an 8-week program that we start next week. So it's perfect timing. We start on Tuesday, February 28th. They're 1-hour live calls that I personally do every single week with everybody. They're recorded in case you miss it or can't be on it. It's the same time every week for 8 weeks, 11 a.m. Central, beginning this Tuesday for 8 weeks, and we'll go through our system, but ultimately we'll take that model, dissect it down for each of you so that you can implement it. Whether you're the lead agent, send your buyer's agents through it, or whether you send your operations person or administrative person to build these systems, what I will share with you is, your scripts will be in your data, your follow-up program. Your email will be there. We'll share our marketing library that goes out to these people before and after and during the open house. But it's really a way for us to take this off of a page or out of words and actually into your actual business. So you can go to mapscoaching.com. It's under group coaching. You could go to holditopenandclosethedeal.com. It's there on your screen, hold it open and closethedeal.com, and that'll link you right over to the maps page as well. Or if you want and make it easier, you can text. Maps Coaching has a text set up. Use text O as in open, 2, the number 2, and then C as in closed, O2C to the number 72727. So text O2C to 72727, and then you'll get a link to sign up for the course if you wish to. And if you do that, that link will get you 20% off of the program before Tuesday as well. So you'll get 20% off of that MAPS program. Any questions that we may have, you're able to type in questions on your dialog box there from the webinar. And maybe Paige, if you see any questions, you can let me know and I'll jump in and answer them, but I figured I'd at least open it for specific questions.
Chris, we have a couple questions here.
Awesome.
One,
Thanks,
how do we close our 28 transactions in the year if our work-life balance does not allow for 1.75 open houses per week?
Well, there's a couple ways to do that. I mean, one of the things that we go through is building out the schedule, right? I mean, we have to have a scheduled life if we're going to do 2 open houses a week. But here's what I would challenge that. Here's what I would challenge. Open houses on average, right? Let's say you're going to do an open for 2 hours a week. And the preparation, the digital preparation takes about an hour. The phone calls will take about an hour, right? The door knocking will take about an hour. We have this dialed down to our open houses typically are about 6 to 7 hours at worst, right? Times 2, or 1.7, it's 12 hours a week. I got to believe that many of us are working 40 hours a week and doing less than 28 transactions. How we do that is having a very structured, scheduled life and also having systems. If it's entrepreneurial, we won't get that done. But I will tell you, remember, I did this system and this process completely on my own. Right? I didn't have leverage when I first started. So this works with or without leverage. But what you will start seeing is as those transactions start happening, the first thing I did, and I talk about that in the course as well, the process of where do I add leverage and how do I add leverage. Who you just heard, Sarah, is our Director of Operations, and she adds leverage through real people and virtual assistants. I mean, this is highly, highly leveraged. Understand our team is probably doing 10, 15, 20, 30 open houses a week across the country, and we have a couple virtual assistants really leveraging out a lot of these activities. Cool. We'll talk about that though, the schedule. It's a great question, and I will share that one of the things I talk about is how do we gain balance in a highly demanding industry and a highly demanding job for sure. What other questions are there, Sarah?
Our next question was, does your initial script, are you out shopping for a home today or do you happen to live in the neighborhood? Do you use that for new home neighborhoods if you're working on site? Like a new construction neighborhood?
Yeah, so for me, unless you're yes, I do, and understand it actually started because that's what I did. Many of you may know, but when I moved to Portland, I did new construction. I actually did tower sales, condo towers. That works just fine. Are you out shopping for a condo, or do you live downtown already? Right? Do you live in the neighborhood? Once they say, yeah, I live downtown, oh great, do you own or do you rent? See, that one question is going to get me down. And understand, we shared the first question of that conversation strategy. We'll share all those questions or those conversation strategies in our course, but that works. New construction, not new construction, established neighborhood, not established neighborhood. I just want to know where they live ultimately, and if they live nearby, do they own? Cool. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have about 4 more if you have the time.
Okay,
what do you do? So, what was that?
I said let's try to blitz through at least 2 of them.
Okay. What do you do when a guest at your open house really doesn't want to give you any of their information, or they may give you one thing, but no matter what, they don't want to give you anything else? How do you handle that, or what do you say?
Here's the deal. I'm going to ask my questions regardless, right? If they give me their name, I'm still going to try to get them some value. Remember, I trade them value for contact information. Are there people that don't get contact information? Absolutely. And here's the deal. I believe that if I'm asking the right questions, I'm going to get enough. My expectation is 2. I don't need everybody. So I let it go. I truly let it go. I try to have a good conversation such that I can use that last question, hey, I've really enjoyed our conversation, would love to continue it. Would that be okay? If they say no, do you want to work with them? No. So try to start a conversation if they're not giving you your contact information up front so you can use that last question. Remember, start with the end in mind. My last question is going to be, hey, love the conversation. Can we continue it? I can't say that if I don't have one. Next question.
What happens when your open is sold before holding it open?
That's a great question. It's come up a couple times this week in some people that I met from Family Reunion. We still hold it open. I set the expectation for my seller as well as an agent that I might be quote-unquote borrowing an open from, and we'll talk about how to do that, letting them know that, hey, our marketing and advertising and representation of your home starts 7 days in advance. So I hope your house sells before we need to do this, but understand on Saturday, if it's sold on Thursday, we just want you to know we're still going to show up. Here's why. Because I care about my reputation and my name, and I put out to the public and your neighbors that we were going to be here. So I still need to be here, and I'm committed to you. I also believe that your house needs to be represented well. And if people, right, maybe you pen today and come back on the market tomorrow. I want to make sure that, one, we're looking for backup offers, and two, people don't show up to your house expecting it to be open and then think ill of you or your home because you didn't have it open. It's a script. One more question.
Actually, that's all of them. I took care of the other ones.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, guys, I appreciate everybody's time. We had a lot of people on the call today. Believe me, my passion has been open houses. I've built my entire business around it. We're expanding through it. I would love, if you have questions about that course, reach out to me on Facebook. But definitely, I'd love to have you as part of our group. We start February 28th, hold it open and closethedeal.com. If you have questions about it first, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook. Just shoot me a quick message. I'm happy to engage if you have questions about what that course might entail. And obviously, if you text O2C to 72727 and go about it that rate or that way, there's a discount that MAPS is offering as well. Look forward to having as many as possible. In the meantime, if I can help you or service any of your clients in any of the states that we service, we'd love to do that. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.